Madam President, I rise to discuss what many believe is the most dangerous threat to our national security, and that is a nuclear Iran. Over the past few weeks, there have been a lot of discussions about the Obama administration's ongoing negotiations with Iran and what the role of Congress should be. I believe the debate this past week in Congress over how to best achieve and address this issue has distracted us from what I believe are the two key objectives in our effort to prevent Iran from achieving nuclear weapons capability. First, Iran must be prevented from getting the bomb. And second, we in the Senate must decide the best way to guarantee that result. For the past 10 years, I've been working hard to find the most acceptable and best way to prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons capability. Note that word, capability. For me, it has long been not enough to just announce that we mustn't allow Iran to get a nuclear weapon. I am determined that Iran must not get the technical capability to manufacture such a weapon. Because a nuclear weapons capable Iran is as dangerous as a nuclear armed Iran, all because it throws up a cloud of ambiguity about its formal intentions. There are many in the policy communities who find some mistaken sense of comfort from the intelligence agency's current view that Iran has not yet made a formal decision to develop a nuclear weapon. This is a delusion. Iran's industrial strength uranium enrichment enterprise has gone from 600 centrifuges 6 years ago, when the international community first expressed alarm, to 19,000 today. And we know the Ayatollah is on a quest for 190,000 centrifuges as soon as international constraints are removed. Let's state the obvious here. The Iranian pursuit of uranium enrichment is not being created to manufacture medical isotopes or reactor fuel for producing electricity. Its purpose is to produce nuclear bombs. Throughout my many years of involvement on this issue, some as co-chair of a task force at the Bipartisan Policy Center, along with former Senator Chuck Robb and a distinguished panel of experts, and the last 4 years here in the Senate, I have called for using the full range of tools to prevent Iran from reaching its nuclear goal. These include negotiations, coupled with ever-increasing sanctions pressure, and a credible threat of the use of military force if the negotiations and sanctions fail to lead to Iran's commitment to cease its pursuit of nuclear weapons capability. And this continues to be my view. I do believe in diplomacy. I would very much like to see the effective negotiations take place, led by insightful diplomats, focused on the right results. I would like to see that lead to a settlement that brings security and confidence. But we've every reason to fear that this is not now happening. I don't want to destroy the negotiations track, but I do want to refocus it with the firm backing that it requires to achieve the goal that we need to reach. I don't want to demand everything from the Iranians, but I do want to require enough to guarantee that they give up on their nuclear weapons ambitions. I don't want to torpedo the administration's diplomatic efforts, but I do want to require that Congress have a final say on whether the results of the negotiations are acceptable and achieve the goals of preventing Iran nuclear weapons capability. For me, and I trust for the Senate, this is our most important task of the moment: to force the President to accept a congressional role. He has said repeatedly that he will deny us that role when it comes to approving any agreement. We must not let that happen. The reason I did not sign the open letter to Iran is not because I disagreed with the goals of the letter. All Senate Republicans, and I believe many Senate Democrats, are in agreement on the overall objective of avoiding a bad deal with Iran. But the strategy we need to accomplish this essential goal is now in question, and we are divided now in a way that makes this goal harder to achieve. There are two bills pending that would require the President to present any Iran deal for us for review and action. And this is the course I believe we should take. One, which I've co-sponsored, has been introduced by both Senators Kirk and Menendez, a bipartisan effort. The other, co-authored by Senators Corker and Menendez, also a bipartisan effort, I also support. The latter bill, which would require Congress to approve any deal with Iran, is very close to achieving the support of 67 or more senators needed to overturn President Obama's promised veto of any legislation on this topic. Lack of bipartisan consensus at this moment on this issue is likely to lead to a fatally flawed deal that destroys more than a decade of effort to bring Iran to cease its goal of nuclear weapons capability. We all know now that the Obama administration abandoned the core objectives at the very outset, even before these talks began. 4 UN Security Council resolutions, frequent and constant demands coming from this chamber, 4 presidents, 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats, saying a nuclear-capable Iran is unacceptable. The firm position of AIPAC and other friends of Israel all stated the necessity that Iran give up and shut down all its uranium-enriching centrifuges. Yet this goal was jettisoned before the talks even started. The Obama administration spokesman, including Secretary Kerry himself, have explained repeatedly that it was just too hard to achieve. We must be more realistic, we were told. The Iranians, we are told, can never be expected to agree to the demands laid down years ago by the Security Council. That was then, they said. This is now. Everything's changed. We have to set that goal aside, and we have to reach some reasonable agreement with a reasonable process with a reasonable country. The word we need to question there is reasonable. Madam President, it appears that my time is running out, but I noticed that no other member is here to speak, so I would ask unanimous consent to speak for just 3 more minutes.
Without objection.
Madam President, I thank you. But even leaving that shocking capitulation aside, that we can never expect that the Iranians would negotiate under those conditions, the now focus, the focus that we should put now on our thoughts, on the key fatal flaw of this agreement. There is a key fatal flaw that now, having done this, having gotten to this point, we need to focus on. It's been simmering for months, but it's now boiled over onto the front pages of our national attention. And that, thanks to presentation by the Prime Minister of Israel, is the sunset clause. We now see that even if Iran is constrained by this agreement, and even if, in the most unlikely of worlds, Iran fully complies with the agreement, at the end of a decade or so, Iran will be fully liberated to pursue nuclear capabilities with no limitations or constraints whatsoever. A free hand, a blank check, go forward. And an Iran that will have wealth, the technical expertise, industrial infrastructure, the will, and, if given a sunset provision, the international acquiescence to do whatever they like, will pursue their goal without any ability of ours to stop them. They can do whatever they like. 10 years, oh, that's a long time out. 10 years is tomorrow afternoon. It's a blink of the eye. Such a sunset clause makes this entire enterprise unacceptable. Any agreement that contains a sunset clause must be rejected. And any agreement with Iran that does not impose permanent restraints on their nuclear ambitions is no agreement at all. We in the Senate have it within our ability and the mandate to guarantee that that happens. But to do so, we need to reach consensus across this aisle. We need to work together as Republicans and as Democrats for the future security of our nation, and for that matter, all nations. Yes, there are a number of issues here which we don't agree on. There are a number of things that we just have different thoughts about how to proceed. But this is an issue of such historic consequence and such potential harm that we must find a way to work together to ensure our ability to undo what looks like it's coming our way. And so I plead with and I urge my colleagues, all my colleagues, Republicans and Democrats, to rise above any political considerations and work together to ensure that this Senate can prevent Iran from getting the bomb. History and future generations and our children and our grandchildren will judge what we do here now. And may that judgment be the right judgment for not just the future of our nation, but for the future of